One of the most remarkable things that you experience in your dealings with a narcissist is the way they always overplay their hand. So their need for control, their need to have you just in the place where they need you most so you can best serve their needs, their need to always find a way of extracting a little bit more supply out of you, whether that's through projection, stonewalling, inducing confusion in you, just mistreating you, not keeping their promises. The way they tactfully play those things against you to make you feel bad, which gives them supply. It's remarkable how they overplay their hand that always in a way that always comes to their detriment. So yes, narcissists they do use, abuse, manipulate people, but they like when the people can stick around to continue to supply them, to continue to validate them. So narcissists are always trying to find that right balance between A, first they love bomb you, hook you in, B, they devalue you on on a regular basis, but they throw in just enough kind words and kind treatment to keep you on the hook. So that's the secret. That's the balance they try to strike, because they don't get much pleasure from treating you well after the love bombing. What they really want is for you to serve them, and it's not just physical things like maybe doing the laundry, running errands, even things like providing financial support. It goes beyond that. They need you as their emotional regulator when they're not feeling good, or that they need to make you feel worse, or when they are in need of validation. They need you to be super focused on them and kind of give all your energy to them, and like this kind of like this turbo energy boost. They try to get you to like really direct your energy flow towards them. So that's what they do, but they always overplay their hand in a sense that they push things too far. They you know that they push the very people away, or they cause the very people to become distant towards them that they actually, in their own way of thinking, wanted to keep in their life. And it's something that they'll always do, because sooner or later people come around and they start seeing patterns and they realize that they're dealing with somebody who's just not healthy. Obviously, some people do stick around with narcissists for many, many, many years, but those are the people who have kind of thrown in the towel and either have become, very submissive and very zombie-like in their existence, or have become very, what's the word, very confrontational and are constantly screaming at the narcissist. These are people maybe who have slight instability, certain traits of instability in themselves, people maybe with more of like a borderline personality disorder, who are sometimes with narcissists, or very bipolar in their nature. Sometimes those people can be very confrontational and just exhaust the narcissist through their own emotional swings and screaming and begging and pleading. But it can all become a bit overwhelming to the narcissist. But yeah, but that's just a certain category of people. A lot of people just become, if they're going to be with a narcissist long term, they become very zombie-like and just kind of have that numbed existence. But those are the ones who stay. A lot of people just don't. Most people just don't stick around very long, or don't stick around in the way that the narcissist would like. And what narcissists do is, narcissists think that they always think that they can treat people badly, that they can break promises, that they can basically put you on a negative emotional roller coaster, and that if they say something nicely later, that you'll kind of forget about the bad stuff, and they can make and that makes up for it. So narcissists, in their mind, they can make up for the bad they do by sprinkling some goodness. That typically works in the first few rounds when you're dealing with naive people, but it doesn't really work long term, and in particular when people become more aware of who the narcissist is, the personality disorder that they have. So what happens is the narcissist will do or say something where the person just they'll realize they've had enough, and they know that the person that they're dealing with is not reliable, is not credible, is not even real, in a sense that that good persona they sometimes bring forth is just not a real person. It's a carefully manufactured persona that they project outwards because they think that you'll attach yourself to the idea of that persona. But it's a careful concoction that they just cannot keep up because it's not real, and it takes a lot of effort for them to keep that up. So people, they end up seeing through the narcissist, and they end up deciding enough is enough. And narcissists, they tend to have an excessive level of pride, maybe an excessive level of confidence, while they're deeply, deeply insecure by nature. They overcompensate by even trying to convince themselves and others, especially others, that they are very confident, and they manufacture these scenarios in their mind where they actually are this super confident being who's super worthy, and sometimes they believe it, but it's hard. They can't really believe it very long because reality is always proving them the contrary, that they're nothing too special, and they hate that. So then they try to further overcompensate, but by further deluding themselves in this grandiose thinking of themselves. But the bottom line is, even though they want to keep certain people around in, keeping them in order and submissive, of course, because obviously narcissists don't like receiving those narcissistic injuries, so they need to make sure that people in their vicinity are conducive to them not receiving narcissistic injuries, but instead are conducive to giving them lots of validation. So, but nevertheless, they end up pushing people away because the need to control, the need to extract validation, the need to project negativity onto the person to feel good about themselves, and endless other things. You take that all together. Narcissists are always looking for that immediate relief, that immediate supply boost, and that short-term need for that short-term relief. They use the supply to do that, that emotional regulation, to get that emotional stability by basically stepping on the person or making them feel bad, is exactly what pushes the person away. And then the narcissist is left empty-handed, or they're left trying to hoover the person back in, especially if the target's a good one. I mean, if the narcissist, occasionally narcissists come across a special target that they realize they can't replace, and then it's just they kind of get obsessed over the person if they've pushed the person away. But I guess the worst situation for a narcissist is when they've pushed somebody away and they don't think they can get them back. That's just, and let's say it's a certain source of stability for them that they feel they can't live without. And that's where the narcissist is in a really bad position. It's just the way their mind is wired. They can't help but start obsessing on how they can get that person back into their life because they see that person as the solution to their well-being. And narcissists want to feel good about themselves. They want to feel validated. They want to have high self-esteem. They want attention from the right types of people with the right types of energy. And it's just something that they overplay their hand. They push people away because of their short-term need for that emotional regulation, that supply, that validation. And then they dig these really deep holes for themselves. And then they just, they start obsessing. They can't focus on other things. Their life isn't enjoyable, and so on and so forth. I mean, the problem with the narcissist is they're so dependent on other people they're so dependent on having other people for their emotional stability and just their overall sense of existence. Like their existence is validated. You're talking about the most basic things. You need to breathe, you need water, you need food, but you need to feel like you exist as well. And that's where narcissists need the right types of targets for. But they end up pushing those targets away. And sometimes the targets come to their senses, and then it's just like, where does that leave them? And then they don't know. But it's just it's one of those things that they'll, even if they're in a semi-catastrophic or catastrophic situation where they push somebody away who they see to be their lifeline, even if they manage to bring that person back into their life and on a goodwill basis, they'll just end up pushing the person away again. So it's quite remarkable how, why narcissists will keep doing that. But it just shows how deeply unregulated they are, how their ego drives them, and they can only kind of plan long term and try to, hook people in and put a lot of energy into that in the early stages during the idealization and the love bombing. But after that, they really can't be bothered, and they need to devalue the person to feel good about themselves, which during that devaluation they overplay their hand quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, you just look at the lives they live. It's all appearance. It's just so much about appearance. They want people to think they're living a good life. They want people to think that they have a lot going for them, but deep down, they don't feel that way. They can get some comfort from making the world believe they're living a good, fulfilling life, but it's just they don't feel that way. And they really need the balancing factor for a narcissist is a good source of supply. But they don't want to even accept that they're dependent on that source of supply. And the last thing they want is for the supply to know that they're dependent on that source of supply. If you're with a narcissist, you supply them. They don't want you to know that they need your supply. And sometimes because they're trying to convince you that they don't need you, they kind of believe it themselves. And then they overplay their hand. They're like, oh shit, I did need that person. Fuck, now I push them away. So yeah, even after they've made a lot of mistakes, even after they've done a lot of bad things to people, they keep making those mistakes. One would like to think that, yeah, maybe some narcissists can improve, self-reflect, and come out of that existence. But, and I'll say nothing's impossible, but you can never expect it. You must always expect that they'll always be the same who they are, because it's just the disorder prevents people, that way of their existence of trying to one-up you, trying to control you. Everything that drives those behaviors in them is also the very same things that protect them from feeling vulnerable against the world. So it's almost like the trade-off. If the narcissist were to ever want to release their narcissism, they would have to accept a certain level of vulnerability. But because that's the interchange that would be required for the narcissist to change would mean them releasing certain things, which would open up a certain level of vulnerability. But because narcissists can never be vulnerable, they can't change, or it's very, very difficult and can take most of their life. So yeah, back to the same old thing. When you're dealing with a narcissist, you can expect them to basically create their own pitfalls, and obviously you can never expect them to change. But you don't need to be the person to supply them. If you have been their supply source and they really need supply, then let them find it elsewhere. Let them try to find another source of supply. Maybe they'll find a supply better than you, but if you're a good supply, they probably won't. Let them just try to find another source of supply. It's not your problem. Send them looking somewhere else and protect yourself.